A couple of years ago, we had farmers in the southern riverina here, the CHU, which was a Commonwealth Environmental Water Holder, was flooding the Murray River. They were flooding. They couldn't hold enough water, and the farmers, their crops were dying because they were not allowed to take one drop of water out of that river. They lost everything. Their crops perished because they were running the Murray River, the channel capacity to maximum capacity, running all the water that was crucially needed for their crops down the Murray River out into the Southern Ocean. And so this is what you're dealing with. So people need to take very, very serious notice of this. This is your environmental policy. This is your government doing this. So we are in downtown Leachville, in the Goulburn Valley, which was part of the heart of the northern Victorian dairy industry. We still have some dairy industry here, but it is greatly reduced. We're here at the site of the old Kraft milk factory in Leachville, Victoria. This is another one of the sites that has been closed down and no longer produces milk products. It runs along with the same line as the Murray Goulburn factory in Rochester and also the Nestle's factory in Tongala. We've got some local people here who can speak to a lot of what's happened with regard to environmental water policy. And I wanted to focus specifically on the Murray Darling Basin Plan. It's had an enormous impact on the dairy industry in particular because irrigation water used to be attached to the land. They unbundled the water from the land, and that then made it possible to be a tradable commodity. And we've seen massive multinational corporates buy up enormous amounts of water. We saw the government buy up enormous amounts of water to allegedly put down the Murray River for the environment, for the benefit of the environment. A lot of people, when they first floated this idea, said that what they want to do will cause enormous environmental damage to the Murray River. Food security is very, very important, and that's why we're doing a tour of these factories to highlight that they're shut down. An analogy for people in metropolitan areas in the cities, when we had water restrictions, when the Millennium Drought was on, people would remember that they used to have lush green lawns, and then they had to let the lawns die because there was no water. So if they imagine that situation happening in your food production areas for your crops and everything else that goes with it, then that sort of gives them a little bit of an idea of where things are at.
Max Fairing, this really started on Melbourne Cup Day, I think it was about 2010 or whenever China had called that meeting because of the drought issue that was coming up at the time. And his environmental minister at the time was Malcolm Turnbull. So a decision was made that we needed to have a plan for the Murray-Darling Basin, which funny enough we'd already been working on before in a different context to make sure that we had a healthy river system. The federal government came involved with this, and we've led through to the development of the Murray-Darling Basin Plan, which is supposed to be completed in 2024. And the biggest sticking issue at the moment is that they still want some extra water, which they said they were never going to take off the farming community after the initial amounts that they bought, but they look like they want to do that. And the incoming new government has got hell-bent on the idea that that's what it wants to do. The biggest concern that we've all struck is that we've got stuck on volumes of water instead of outcomes. Now, we in Victoria, I will argue, has had the best regulated water system perhaps of any state in Australia and certainly anywhere in the world. I can speak with some authority on that because I'm a Churchill Fellow that went around the world and studied how we share water between the city, the urban environment, agriculture and the towns. So I have a very good understanding of that. And we in Victoria have always worked on the principle of security of water. In other words, making sure we don't take more than the river system can give us. So what Malcolm Turnbull and then followed by Penny Wong, they've all implicit in this, both sides of Parliament, or politics are implicit, is that they've got to working around with some figures. We had a huge amount of community consultation, which really was totally irrelevant because nobody's ever listened to us or nobody ever treated us with respect and dignity. We've now reached a point in this community where we used to have 610,000 megalitres of water go through this district. We're now down to under half that. We have got the ability, this is where the laser grading in Australia, all the high technology stuff started. Nearly a third of the district now being piped, so there's huge investment going on. but we continually don't get any recognition for that, and we continually have a Murray Darling Basin Commission that just has no respect for the communities it's supposed to represent.
The new Labor government that's come in, the federal Labor government, is now contemplating taking what we call the additional 450 gigs of upwater. That will be a catastrophic situation if it occurred. When the legislation was written for the 2007 Water Act, it was never meant to be taken, it was never meant to be looked at, but hello, look out, now they're trying to look at it. So that's an enormous and extra amount of water. We'll take it up to 3,200 gigs of water that's been taken. So, and for people who don't know, those figures will probably mean nothing, but that is monumental, and it is be catastrophic on top of what we've already lost. A big part of the environmental argument, or the environmental science that was put up to support the Murray Darling Basin Plan, was about saving the lower lakes in South Australia and the Coorong. The lower lakes in South Australia, as was proven by many of the honest scientists, as opposed to the other kind, was that the lower lakes in South Australia were predominantly saline, they were predominantly saltwater, and they've tried to artificially fill them up with our freshwater. So that is a massive issue, and it was a big problem with the entire thing right from the start.
Yeah, Russell Crichton. I took an interest. I was a dairy farmer here. There never was a shortage of water. Never is a shortage of water. Recognising that the 2,750 gigalitres is a postcode, that's the best science we've got. And you talk to the people like Ken Jury, an investigative journalist and biologist.
Absolutely.
A brilliant man. And he says that if they just put in lock 0, we can get back, because the postcode's now in writing, we can get back, he can give back 18,000 gigalitres back into the system.
Yep.
And no one's talking about that. Well, I'm talking about food security. I love milking my cows, but it become uneconomically viable, switched over to beef because I could see that I couldn't milk cows with or without water, no continuity, no confidence. And I get a bill for $13,000 each year, and I'm minding your money, little fella. And this is to the upkeep of this area. People that trade water don't have to pay that. Do you think that's fair, that we have to pay to look after a system? The people that took the water and trade it get the benefits, no contribution. The people that own and buy water, in 30 years you'll probably have a half a dozen people controlling Australia's water. Is that, and do you think that'll affect your food security? In other words, you've put another tier in the system, which is the trader and the water owner. That wasn't there. We used to buy our water wholesale. One of the water traders just made a 14% return on their investment for their investors.
Yeah, they're making a fortune.
An absolute fortune, and a lot of this is overseas control, and we're sitting there talking about inflation, food security. Bloody madness. Can anyone remember the fish kills in the Darling River? What caused the fish kill in the... drained the river down the sea for the environment. And please, anyone that wants to see what's happened to the environment, then go and have a look at the river at Barham. They're losing 5 metres every time they change. The bank's gone. And then we've got a Barmer choke, that a natural constraint. They try to put so much water in that they flood the forest, so eventually they'll kill the biggest red gum forest in the world.
Yes,
will get drowned. And they call this for the environment. This was the most efficient dairy industry in the world, bar none, because we were the insurance policy that took that water out of the river through the summer.
Absolutely.
And we grew grass, and the cows ate the grass, and we milked them. And there was a lot of people doing it, small farms. The winners are the water traders, and the losers are
us.
The dairy, the family farmer, the environment. There you have your Murray Darling Basin Plan. We've gratefully got the minister down here, the minister who thought he was minister, to Mr Pitt to come down and have a look here. We were very grateful that he come down, but although we just found out he wasn't a minister. Or was he? He didn't know, did he? With the northern New South Wales and the Queensland farmers taking the water first, the Darling Basin River is dead. And because of this stupid bloody agreement that says that we've got to supply South Australia with a third of our water, it all has to come out of the Murray. So, you know, mission impossible, fellas. There's a few things that can change. We're going to have a flood very shortly. And why we're going to have that flood is because the dams here were made for water and flood mitigation. Right, they should be, half full. I'm not half full when you start the... They were full because that was held over by investors. You carry over a bit of water. That water's carried over into next season, could be carried on for 6 seasons for the benefit of investors. And people, you've got food security, you're going to be important. So don't cry when you, don't blame the farmers when you have to pay a bit for your milk.
Absolutely. The governments appeared to be just hell-bent on pushing that through, irrespective of how much damage it caused, irrespective of how many industries it wiped out, how many farmers, and how it's affected our food security. We now have investors from overseas who own enormous amounts of Australian water. They are making a fortune by buying up water when it's cheap and then holding it over and flogging it off to our farmers at enormously exorbitant prices when the water's needed. And this is sending more and more of our farmers broke. We've got farmers who are just leaving the industry in droves because they're making it unviable. The environmental policy needs to be absolutely just thrown out and start again from honest people, from decent people. We will see shortages. You'll see prices go through the roof, the cost of living. I remember a few years ago when a cyclone, which was a natural event, went through Queensland and wiped out the banana crop there. And bananas in the supermarket overnight went from $3 a kilo to $18 a kilo. And that was based solely on no supply. So we are seeing this creeping in now. That same scenario is happening. We're seeing the food prices go through the roof. These are the people on the ground. They're the ones, these are the grassroots industry blokes here who are sounding the warning bells now. They are saying to people, this is going to happen. If it continues as it is, people need to take very, very serious notice because it's just going to get a hell of a lot worse. So